I leave the pits and I go into the track, and then as soon as I hit the brake pedal, everything, like the whole system goes ahead, and I'm no longer able to touch the brake pedal. So this was a curve. Obviously, I was going to go and brake and to go into the curve, and I just couldn't. So I went straight into the bushes.
If somebody who's watching like have this dream of making it into Formula One, for example, which universities would you recommend to give yourself the best chance?
From my university, there are a couple that are working in Formula One today.
Is there footage of you driving?
There is. I can also share that with you.
From when to when did you go to university? From which year?
So I started mechanical engineering from 2009 until 2015. And
Did you all your study in Venezuela, or had you some years in maybe Europe?
no, it was entirely, my time was entirely in Venezuela. Honestly, I was just an engineering student, just attending lessons and doing my thing. And then I went to a conference, automotive engineering conference. I was curious about the topics at the time. And within the conference, there was a break where, between speakers. And on this break, the Formula student team made an exhibition of what we did at the university. I didn't even know about the team. And they made this exhibition where a driver, making donuts and going full speed, like accelerating, braking, and it was extremely cool. I could not believe that some engineering students, just like me, were building this. We're working on building a racing prototype. Like think about it. How often do you get the chance to build a racing car? Yeah, this is basically a project that is completely voluntary. You don't get paid. You don't
Do
get
you get any
additional,
credit points for
no
example?
credits. It's mainly the experience and the excitement. And obviously, it's tricky to manage that when you're in a team because you cannot demand basically nothing from no one. No one's
Can
there getting money.
you prolong your study? So that you say, I because I do this Formula student stuff, I can study for 2 semesters longer.
I mean, you can always do that. I mean, there were also some limitations in the university, like you needed to keep a certain amount of credits to stay enrolled, right? But it was entirely your decision. It was entirely voluntary, and it's not all about getting credits. It's not all about getting the degree, right? It's sometimes
Yeah,
the
I mean, often you
experience in
have the
itself,
most motivation when you do stuff
of course.
voluntarily.
Yeah, yeah, and the things you learn, and like it's extremely challenging to build a racing car.
So I
It's
wonder. So you said that students build that. So I wonder. So when I come from my Abitur in Germany, I think in US it's A levels. I didn't even know how to fix something like how to change a bulb or something, because you don't learn anything about that in school. So when I think about it, you come to university, unless you have already building some stuff in your free time, you have basically no relevant knowledge when it comes to anything that would be relevant from your student team. So I wonder, how is its team structured? Is it actually only containing students, or are there more experienced people on the top, which are then like bringing their experience from maybe Formula 4 or something, to give the students tips and help them?
So there's experienced students, teammates that have been second, third, fourth year. Some people spend their whole career, like student career there. But no, it's all students. Of course, you can always ask around to a professor or to a technician at the lab or so on. But for the most, and I think it's one of the biggest lessons that I learned getting hands-on with, building a car and maintenance and everything that comes with it is actually just looking at the manual. When we have there is maintenance manual, there is like everything in the car that is not produced by us. Like I mentioned, the engine, we get a Honda CBR 600 engine on the car.
So which parts are you getting delivered? So this is the engine. Are there any other parts like gearbox?
Engine, differential, tires, of course, we're making
Yeah, I mean,
tires like
makes sense.
rims and a few things. I think let's turn it around and say, what did we build? The whole brake system, the chassis, like it was a tubular chassis of aluminum. Um, it was an alloy actually of aluminum and other metals. And
Using carbon for the car.
yeah, so not the chassis, but more like the um, how to say the cover for the car was made in carbon fiber. Um,
Are the wings carbon fiber?
they were, yes. At some point, because it really depends on how you work the carbon fiber. For example, the test wings, and for some years also, we built with glass fiber. It is theoretically like depends on how you treat the fiber. It becomes lighter or heavier. But for the processor that we were doing, it was the same to use glass fiber than carbon. Cars, like regular commercial cars, are made with glass fiber, if I'm not wrong.
I've never heard that glass fiber is used for cars. I've heard aluminium and stuff like that, and
We
all
need to
sort of
check on that.
steels. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It's quite light. I have actually something which is also made of carbon fiber. But is it like rigid? Because carbon fiber, like I have some carbon fiber parts from my bike, and it's really impressive how thin it is and how rigid it is.
Yes, so it is rigid. Um, I think it really depends on how you operate with it, like which process do you use for the manufacturing. Um, there are entire cars made of only carbon fiber, and of course they're super light and very rigid, very sturdy.
If you use carbon fiber parts, aren't they really hard to manufacture? Because I've, for example, seen videos about Pagani where they have these huge ovens that you need to actually harden the carbon fiber. So is that something you outsource? I doubt you have this stuff in your backyard.
No, that's why we didn't rely on it because we didn't have the equipment to rely. I think most teams, top teams that did that, they made use of like big industries that were doing that. Even other racing teams that would make the car on it's called monocoque structure. So basically, yeah, it's a compact chassis made of a single material. And then, you build from that structure everything outside. I think that's the way Formula Ones are made.
You talked about the team. How many people were on your team approximately?
Give or take around 30 to 40.
Is that a
And
typical size for a Formula student team?
depends. It really changes. The most successful team in my era was called Global Formula Racing. It was an American company, American university and a German university joining forces.
I mean,
And
U.S. university are basically companies, I think.
yeah, basically, they do have the profit and revenue structure. Um, but so these guys were like around 80.
So when you talk about all these development stuff, I guess that comes at a cost. What's the cost of such a student team? So if you sum that up over a year, how much sponsoring do you need to build such a car?
Say there was, so in the competition, there were different um, tests. There were the static events, and then there were dynamic events. And prior to that, there were even the most basic technical safety events. Okay. And the static events, one of them is called the cost evaluation. And basically, you are presenting how much your car costs for the judges. And
Are they
Of
also
course,
testing the car? Because in the end, it matters how good the car is for that
for
price.
sure.
So if you have a shitty car, then if it's cheap, it doesn't help, I
Yeah,
guess.
of course. No, I mean, it was not the biggest part of the competition, the cost event. I think it was 75 points out of 1,000. Uh, I think it's, at the end of the test of the competition, you get a full result, and it will only get up to a point that it matters. I mean, of course, I would rather get high racing scores on the dynamic events that were like around 600 points of 1,000 than to get like low cost, that get a high cost score and then have a shitty car on track. Most top teams were not looking at that. At the
I
cost
mean,
is
if you
like
get like eight times more points for the racing, then I would be like, just splash money if you have them.
it was not only about the price tag, it was also about the manufacturing processes. Like there's also ways to make your manufacturing less expensive. Like use the same piece of material for different parts on the same process. I know this sounds ambiguous, but like some teams would not pay attention to those details. And for example, if you're making one part, you use one piece of material, and then for the other one, you use the same piece of material, but it's a different part. So you would have to manufacture one by one. This was a hack that we found at some point, and we my team literally we got champions of cost for a couple of years, like at least in the podium.
What do
And
you so when you win this competition? So there are different categories, and then the winner is determined based on all the sum with some weighting of all these categories. So what would be the achievement? Because you said it's basically not part of your degree. It is a hobby. You don't get paid. So you would maybe do it for fun because you say like driving these cars is fun and just having a nice time on the racetrack. But what would be the goal of winning these cost competition?
there was a prize money for it. It was still a student competition, so no one was really there for the money. I think the benefit was from going through the experience of getting the budget, getting a team working together with you towards building something really cool. And I know at the beginning it doesn't sound very attractive. It's like, I just want to get my degree and, I don't know, get a job. But in retrospective, like even now, when I have an interview, a work interview, I want to apply, I still bring those memories and lessons. Like, tell us a challenging time. Fuck, when you've been on a competition and like facing 120 different teams on a racetrack, and it's a design that you came up with the idea and you developed and you manufactured and you are literally testing it on track. I don't think we get those chances so easily on our you know grown up life on a company, so to say. I mean, I think sure, if you are in the motorsports business, you do get to do that, but it's not going to be many people calling the shots.
I mean, I would guess that if you apply, then this really is a big plus because I mean, I would guess the study itself is probably more theoretical, and this gets you the practical experience. So if I was someone who's hiring engineers, I think for me that would be a big plus. So did you have that experience that people that were an F student did get better jobs due to it?
Absolutely. I think not only, I mean, as a designer, like as soon as I entered the industry, I had all the experience of building a race car. So I could speak face to face with people that, you know, were 3 years, 4 years into a full-time job, you know? Because obviously a junior mechanical designer, the first position that I had, would not get a big responsibility the first year, right? So they grew into it. But as a student building a race car, you would get straight into like tough challenges of like, all right, you need to build a caliper for the brake system. Good luck. These are the forces. We'll test it on the racetrack. Let's see what happens. It's a big responsibility, and you are involved throughout the whole process because big important detail is that we built one race car per year. So the competition is made so, the winning car doesn't always get to stay the same, right? Every year the team brings updates and new cars, and it's can be the same members. Usually it's not. People graduate, people leave, people just quit, and they decide because it takes a lot of time. They decide to focus more on the studies and leave the team. So the car is always a better version. It can also happen that most team members they just graduate and then the team falls into a vacuum. But that generation to generation um, change also is something that big teams consider. Like, okay, this is going to be my successor, so I train him or her into that.
And after, so I would guess that a lot of people who do have Formula Student, they play with the thought of maybe making it as a professional race engineer, like a mechanical. So, do you know people who made it into the big stage, Formula One or other pro motorsports, due to their experience?
Yes, I from my university there are a couple that are working in Formula One today. Actually, in Red Bull Racing, there is the head of testing is like someone from my team from my university, a bit older than
You still
me.
got the connections there?
Yeah, maybe we get some gossip around the Formula One. Yeah, no, I think some people actually make it all the way, and it's impossible for someone in South America to develop a Formula One career. That's just it doesn't happen. You can become something locally, but on the highest end of motorsports, it's you
But
gotta
didn't you
go
just
to
brought up an example of someone from your team who made it to Formula One?
yes. No, but I mean, good catch. He moved to the UK. Like he went through a master's in motorsports in Cranfield, like a top university in the UK that most Formula One engineers come from the top masters of motorsports programs, and
So
he
which
did.
which universities, if somebody who's watching like have this dream of making it into Formula One, for example, which universities would you recommend to give yourself the best chance?
So it's Cranfield University in the UK that used to be the number one. I would have to update my knowledge about that. But Cranfield University in the UK and Oxford's Brookes University in the UK was also really, really top. And those were where the Formula One teams go and recruit new engineers. Nowadays, with globalization, I can imagine that you don't need to specifically be from those universities, but of course it helps because there's not many universities that offer specifically motorsports programs. These are like real case scenarios about testing, about setups, about all the details of what you know you face when you're in a motorsports team, which is very different monster than going to, I don't know, a commercial manufacturer. It's completely different. You're, Toyota, like if you're building a, I don't know, a Land Cruiser, you're focused on profits or you're focused on, ergonomy or like little details that make it to the commercial manufacturing lines. And then you're talking about motorsports, you're going all the way to a racetrack, like optimization of performance, weight, reliability, and yeah.
I mean, it's the same with professional sports in general. I mean, you just have to be on a completely different level than when you do just a 9 to 5 job.
Of
Um,
course.
so how, let's say somebody has this dream of making it to Formula One, for example, and goes to such a university, um, but I guess the spots of people who actually make it are much less than the people who try to get into. So if you kind of not make it there, does can you apply your knowledge to like normal engineering? So could you, if somehow your dream fails, could you go to like Toyota, Volkswagen, BMW, or is it like all or nothing?
No, I think the skills are definitely transferable. At the end of the day, like one of our professors used to say, building a race car is all about project management. And he was actually right, like whenever we hit a roadblock, it was usually a logistics or like, you covered 80% of the car and then you forget about, I don't know, a small little thing that completely blocks the development. You cannot go into the racetrack until this is delivered. And so you have thick, like the biggest part of the car standing there, ready to be tested, but I don't know, some bearings are missing and you're like, crap, we cannot go into the track. Like, we need this. And you kind of, it's something so advanced that you can just go to the, I don't know, convenience store in the corner and get it. It's something that you have to wait until you get. So I think experience of going through the whole process obviously helps a lot. It was great when you had a team member that has been the previous year. But so to answer your question, definitely the skills are transferable when it comes to sourcing, when it comes to project management, when it comes to designing. I mean, at the end of the day, for example, I did a lot of CAD, computer aided design, using SolidWorks or the softwares. And once you've made an assembly of a racing car, you know, making an assembly of something, a particular part, it's going to be a lot easier. Or designing parts that are not facing racing car forces or vibrations. I mean, once you've been through a lot of those hard tests that are put to test on a racetrack, many things later will feel like a breeze, much easier.
I'm a physicist, so for example, aerodynamics would be probably the part where I could contribute the most to, but then I'm probably the person which has super impractical ideas, which are horrible to implement from an engineering standpoint. So I wonder, in Formula One, there are like thousands of rules which determine basically what you can do aerodynamically. So in the end, if you look at the cars, you could probably, if you would like if they all were looking the same from the outside in terms of color, you probably could not say which is the McLaren, the Red Bull, or something, because they all end with similar shapes. So, how is it in Formula Student in terms of regulations? Can you have you these precise regulations, or can you do basically whatever you want to some degree?
No, definitely there is like a rule book that you must follow. Most of it is safety based. At the end of the day, this is an amateur competition. We're talking about engineering students, right? So, like I said, in the competition, it is divided in three: safety, static, and dynamic events. You only get to the dynamic part once you've got an approval on the safety of your car.
Do you have crash tests?
We do have to give data to the judges on our crash test. So at the front of the car, there is like a crash device that basically absorbs the impact in case of a crash. So we do not have live crash test on every competition, but we need to give proof to the judges that we've done it. We've done our homework.
But it seems difficult to like determine what would happen in a crash without crashing. That seems quite theoretical to me.
For sure it is. Caveat of this competition, it's not a wheel-to-wheel racing. It's not, so it's an autocross sort of competition. There are some situations where many cars are on track at the same time. But basically, it's when you have a circuit, you are shown the blue flag once a competitor is close to you, and you have to go outside of the track. They overtake you, and then you come back into the track. So
Yeah, but I guess if you do your job well, then you never get a blue flag. at,
exactly. No, and if
at
you
least
do your
not for
job
you.
well, you do not crash. The risk is very low. It's not like, I don't know, Formula One or like,
But is this sort of crashing relevant? Because I've seen those tracks, which are basically they're just cones which like determine the path, and then there's the wide runoff area. If you just run over the cone and nothing happens. So is it actually relevant, or is it more like a test, like with the finances that they say, okay, you might be a pro race engineer later, and this is like your entry test. You should be able to build a safe car, even though it might not be necessary in this league.
no, it is definitely relevant. I mean, mistakes can happen. There can be accidents. And for example, I don't know, you have a problem with a accelerator. You have a problem with I don't know, a wire that cut loose and your accelerator is full speed. In those scenarios, you need to be ready for whatever happens. There is like a particular test also on the safety of that. But it can happen at the end of the day. I don't know, even your driver panicked and they just hit the pedal. You have to be ready for those scenarios, even when the risk is low. You have to put yourself in the shoes of the organizers of the competition. They are still like managing engineering students, right? So they want to be sure that even the worst case scenario, the car is designed to sustain an impact.
I mean, a scenario which seems more likely than a high speed crash would be a car starting burning. So, I
And that
mean, you even
happened
see it in
plenty
Formula
times.
One,
Yeah.
where things are a lot more professional. So, I would guess if you like let engineering students build a car, there is not a completely zero chance that it might start burning at some point.
And it happened so many times, like fuel leakage on the injectors. Like, this is the thing, we're used to buying a car and having, a manufacturing plant process and everything is quality standardized and so on. But this is literally a 20 years old fitting a whole fuel system for a racing car. It's like, whoa, wait a second. And there are leakages, there are faults, there are electric, short circuits. So
Did your car ever start burning
it did.
in racing or in,
And for
in when you build it?
example, this literally happened to me when I was driving. They didn't fit the brake, like where we put the pedals, both accelerator and pedals, very firm. So there was like, I don't know, a bolt loose.
Do
So
you
as
have
soon as
these? So
I,
in Formula One, they have really fireproof overalls. So, for example, Roman Grosjean was in the
yeah,
flames for I think 30
we had
seconds.
that as well. And balaclava and gloves, everything was, there was a safety standard every time anyone got into the car. So speaking about fire, for example, we did have a proper uh, suit. There was a regulation when we talk about rules back then, that there need to be a firewall between the engine and the driver. So it was quite covered. So in case of fires, the driver would not expose directly to that fire. That was a safety measure.
I
And
mean, that seems quite useful um,
yeah,
to have.
yeah. This happened more than a couple times. Like imagine you have a fuel leakage and then that goes all the way into the exhaust, which is burning
Did you
hot.
ever got anyone, or do you anyone in your team or in general, that got a serious injury from doing this stuff?
Gladly, no. We've had very scary situations, especially with fuel, car almost burning entirely, but the driver was never, seriously hurt. I don't know, something like Grosjean, you mentioned it never happened like that. There was a test, a safety test as well, which is driver in every competition, the driver needs to get out of the car in less than 3 seconds. That is a rule. If there's something wrong with your design that doesn't allow that, you won't be able to compete.
I thought it was 5 seconds, but three seems. I don't know. In Formula One, I think it's 5 seconds, but maybe I'm wrong here. I thought.
Maybe it's five, and I exaggerated. I don't remember exactly. I just remember because I was one of the drivers. It
I
was
mean,
extremely quick.
ideally, you get out as fast as possible.
Yeah. Now we can
um,
fact check it after the episode, but it's designed to be that way. You have a single point of seat belts. Like you just in one single spot, you just turn it, and every seatbelt just releases. And yeah, it's.
did you ever have a bigger impact when you were racing?
I did have one scary scenario. I was telling about it before that where like in the part of the chassis where the brake and the accelerator pedals were fit together into the chassis. Someone forgot to put a bolt there. So, when I started, it was on the brake pedal side that it was not fit. So I don't know if it was 4 bolts, two were okay on the accelerator pedal, but on the brake pedal, they forgot to tighten it, and everyone just make sure that you're in good space to accelerate and go on with it. Um, and then I could accelerate. I leave the pits and I go into the track. And then as soon as I hit the brake pedal, everything, like the whole system goes ahead, and I'm no longer able to touch the brake pedal. So this was a curve. Obviously, I was going to go and brake and to go into the curve, and I just couldn't. So I went straight into the bushes, and I crashed against the bushes. So that was quite a real test
So
of
there
the
was no
crash
runoff
scenario.
area. It was not just cones, and you were just going.
No, no, I went. This could have been an awful scenario, like
I mean, you're lucky that
luckily,
it's not a hard wall there, because if you going flat out,
or
you
even
need not
worse, like
having
it
as
was not
much
a cliff or something
concussion.
that I could, fall from, because obviously I'm on a 300 kilo car. Like, if it's a cliff, it's like good luck. And there is some safety to it. Like, you have a proper seatbelt. It's a tubular frame. It's quite rigid and sturdy, but still, you know, these things can happen. So it's a real risk. I mean, when you're racing cars, it's always risk in any competition. Even you don't need to go to the Formula One to see high risk when you're going fast on cars.
So you talked about the engine before and leakages. In general, what kind of engine do you use? Do you have? I guess you have limitations. So, for example, in Formula One, I think there's like 1.6 liters. There's also determined how much fuel there's allowed to go through. So, what are the regulations there?
So it's 600 and a little bit more cc. So most teams, including mine, would go for like a motorcycle engine, a racing engine.
I think
We used
600
a
cc is probably Moto 2. I think Moto GP has 1,000, and Moto 2, I think it was 600 in the past. Now it's 700 something, but I guess Moto 2 engine could
yes,
work.
and I mean even commercial engines like for not strictly racing motorcycles, but street bikes that go really fast. Honda CBR, it's the one that we used. So it's very powerful, lots of torque and great performance. So as the limitation was on 610 cc, if I don't remember
How
wrong.
much horsepower do you get out of that?
So it's not about the engine, it's about, so the competition was limited by the intake. Obviously, this affects a lot the engine performance. So on the
So we're
rule
talking about
book,
the air intake, not about the fuel intake.
exactly, air intake, which of course goes hand in hand with fuel and air is what goes inside the engine, right, for combustion. So there was a requirement of having a point in the intake system where there was a maximum of 20 millimeters diameter. So that was basically choking the engine on high RPMs, creating a vacuum and limiting the performance of the engine to set a safety limit on what was happening on the racetrack. So that was the way that they guarantee that cars were not going full speed at the maximum they could go for. And our engine output would be around 70 to 80 horsepowers. But I think this competition was all about acceleration. We would reach 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in less than 4 seconds, but we would not go over 120 kilometers. So the
Because of the
accelerations
tracks or
were
because the car couldn't go?
basically the intake would not allow us to. Like it would lose efficiency and it would just choke because of turbulence in the intake system because of this 20 millimeters restriction.
Okay, so actually, it's so usually I would guess, for example, in Formula One, you have these side pods. There's a lot of air going in, and the faster you go, the more you would actually expect that it's better because you get more and more air. I'm not an engineer, but like my idea would be like more air might be better. But in your case, so you have like a thin opening, and when you're going faster, then the air is even struggling more to get through this small part because like
So
turbulence.
there's two sides to it. I mean, side pods are mostly for the refrigeration of the engine, so to keep it cool. The intake is actually right on top of the
Okay,
driver's helmet. Um, and it is actually, most of the vacuum is not created by the speed of the air coming into the intake. It's actually created by the engine that creates the vacuum once the piston goes down. It
so it's like
emits
a
what
vacuum cleaner basically with a small opening.
basically. So whenever, the engine, because of the inertia that the crankshaft goes with, would demand, like we create a vacuum for air and fuel to go in back through the valves opening. That was actually what created the demand of air to come in. But because the intake had this 20 millimeters restriction, the pressure was becoming so low and the air was becoming so turbulent that it could not go all the way into the engine because the delta, the difference between pressure, was very low.
Yeah, because
So it
turbulent
would
air
lose
has lower
efficiency.
pressure, so the pressure difference from the outside to the inside gets lower.
Exactly. So it would lose efficiency. And this was a
I see.
constant struggle at those levels of high turbulence because it's not linear, right? Like it's always dynamic and you would feel it a lot on the car when it's basically the engine is choking. It cannot give you any more.
So my first idea from an engineering standpoint would be now, so you don't want the air to hit the opening with a high speed because this causes turbulence. So couldn't you just kind of, let's say, put a plate or something in front of it so the air is not hitting at full speed, so that it's basically like at low speeds that you kind of block the spot, like it's still open but the air is not coming with high speed from the front, or maybe you have the opening to the engine somewhere where the air is not coming with high speed and causing this turbulence.
It's not the airspeed in that messes it up the most. It's the demand from the engine that is.
Do you have only one gear then? Because I would be thinking if you um, let's say you run an engine at some certain RPM, let's say 5,000, that's just a random number. And let's say at 5,000 RPM, at that gear ratio that you're using, it goes, let's say, 50 kilometers an hour. Then you use another gear ratio, which let's say is 3 times as long. then you would go 5,000 RPM and you would have 150 kilometers an hour. So wouldn't this be the same situation in terms of what the engine does? It's just like a different gear ratio.
No, you're thinking right. The problem was that each gear's life, where like efficiency was very limited because of this 20 millimeters. So basically, whenever you would hit the break point, the inflection point that the engine was losing efficiency, you would shift gears, and that's how we could go from 0 to 120. So first gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear, but eventually we would hit rock bottom at 120, 130 kilometers per hour. And this was actually designed to be this way. So any again, it's an amateur competition. No one would go over 130 kilometers per hour at the competition. However, because of this gear shifting, we could get from 0 to 100 in less than 4 seconds. That is very fast, even for high standards of racing. And so you could feel a lot of G-force, acceleration, both lateral and whenever you accelerated in the car, whenever you went on a curve. But top speed was very, very limited, and I think it also had a lot to do with safety.
I mean, could you have gone? So I've seen the tracks, and they look really tight. It kind of gives me claustrophobia. I also found it a bit unsatisfying because you have seems like really nice cars, like cars on steroids, and then you have these really tight courses where you cannot really go really fast. So is there actually are there actually tracks where you could go a lot faster than 120, 130, even if you did not have this engine intake restriction?
Well, we would have to take the intake restriction away. But let's say if you take the intake limitation and you just put a whole intake system designed to maximize, definitely this would go over 200 kilometers per hour. But it really becomes, again, every racing car is designed to be optimized for its racing conditions, right? So we designed suspension system, brake system to be optimized for those 120, 130 kilometers per hour. So we would have to redesign everything for some safety standards. It happens even with engines, for example. If you go and say, can my commercial engine, I don't know, you can add nitro, like, back in the day with Need for Speed and so on. The engine needs to be designed for that. Same happen with a car. Otherwise, you're going to blow it away. And sure, if we take the intake away, the engine would perform so much better. We would have a top speed of 200 kilometers per hour, but the car would also need to be designed from a chassis perspective, from a brakes perspective, from a suspension, aerodynamics. Everything would need to be redesigned so we could handle it. It would basically be another Formula category.
Formula 5.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's basically what happens. I mean, I don't really know the details. What's the size of Formula 3 engine? Is it 1.6 as well? I guess
let me check. Formula 4 is the lowest Formula series. Actually, Formula 4 also uses 1.4 to 1.6, but also it's capped at 160 horsepower.
Oh, then you see, we're half Formula 4 engine with 80 horsepower.
Yeah. I mean, you seem to be more, but they probably have some restriction because, I mean, Formula 1 has the same engine size and they get like, I don't know, 600 horsepower or something. I mean, I've seen this tracks and they seem really tight. And I mean, Formula Student, as far as I understood, is mostly an engineering contest. It's not so much about the driver like in the Formula series. So you have these courses which look like basically a driving safety training with all these cones, which then again puts a lot of emphasis on the driver. So doesn't it make the driver quite important then if you have all these very demanding tight tracks, which is like contradictory to it being an engineering contest?
Absolutely. I mean, but there's only one way to test the car, right? And that is going fast. There is a restriction of not allowing professional drivers to go into the competition. It would not be fair because you put a professional driver on a shit box and it's gonna destroy any amateur driver on an amazing car. It really is like that. Drivers are ridiculously skilled. I think we do not appreciate what kind of monsters are these guys and girls on a racing car. Really, they're taking it to the absolute limit in every part of the circuit when they go for it. Um, and so that's a limitation that you had. You could not hire professional drivers that were like on a on another competition.
Does that person have to be in your university? Does it have to be a person from your team?
Yes, that's the caveat. So, they would need to be attending each university that they were competing for, and you don't get many people to do that. However, there are freestanding courses, right? Like you could find a trick and do it. And there were specific scenarios where like not professional drivers, but very skilled like karting racers would be studying in university because they were not successful. I don't know. They didn't make it to Formula One, I guess. And
But I mean,
then
then if I think about it, if you say it's basically an engineering contest, but then practically it's more about the driving, then if I was running a Formula student team, I would be like, okay, why do I put all this effort into engineering when it's so much about the driver? Let's put a lot of effort in trying to find and recruit the best driver that we have in our university, put that on our team, and let this person
that
drive our
happened.
car so we
Yeah,
get more
that was the
successful.
story of every team. Like every team was, drivers were treated like, you know, I wouldn't say gods, but like they were really appreciated
Royalty.
because, and it's black or white. I could show you. I would love to share with you the timings of our competition in 2010s. My mentor when I was a driver, he was really like he was the best driver that we've had in the university, and I'm gonna show you the timings of this driver against the second driver. They were on the same car, but it's the first stint was done by him and the second stint was done by another driver. And you would see 3 seconds in between them, at least. It's
How long?
ridiculous.
How long is the lap?
100 seconds, so to say, like under two
So it's like
minutes,
a normal Formula One circuit in terms of duration.
basically. And then, to design a 3 seconds faster car, it's we're talking completely different budgets, we're talking completely different everything, and then a good driver would bring that. So every team would wanted to get the fastest person on the driver's seat for sure. And it was part of the experience. I think if you ask me, after these years of experience, it was all about getting the driver and the car in harmony. Some teams wanted to build the fastest car, and then they would just like release the car for testing because they were waiting for one more upgrade or whatever, like until very soon before the competition, and they would not allow each driver to get to know the car. Like, okay, how much can I push this? How much can I get it? Which, like, also there's racetrack conditions. Maybe the day that you were testing, it was cold weather. Maybe the next day it was raining. I mean, there's many different conditions that a good driver would feel comfortable with in the car, and they would need to push to the limit. And
But if you have, let's say, less practice with the car because you're, for example, only allowed to do two timed laps, wouldn't this make the gap between a really skilled driver and a not so skilled driver even bigger because a skilled driver is probably a person which can adapt a lot more quickly to certain circumstances.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Drivers were ridiculously important in this engineering competition, but so it is. Like even on game simulators like GPRO, a good driver can bring results in many categories. Not in all categories, but that's why we focus so much on drivers, right? Like it's
But
you see
you,
the
you said
difference.
you said that pro drivers were not allowed. So does it also apply when they were immatriculated at the university? So even if that person is part of the university and is part of your team, but has some pro racing background, that person would still not be allowed to race.
I am not sure about the real limitations. I know there was a case, and I will have you look at some YouTube content of this amazing driver. He was a karting champion or like top three in the US when we were competing, and he was attending this top team. And even within the top team, between the top two drivers, the second driver was really good, but he was just ridiculous. Like he would pull 2 seconds, 3 seconds again on this great driver, and people were calling it unfair. But he is enrolled in the university, so it's like he is a student. Where do you draw the line uh, on on the driver limitation? So yeah,
Is there footage of you driving?
there is. I can also share that with you.
Is there
Real.
footage of you racing with 120 into the bushes?
Unfortunately, no. We were not big in the GoPro. That would have been hilarious. DM, driver mistake there. I know. Yeah,
Probably more like a start crash and ending the race.
definitely,
Your
definitely.
driver got sick into your helmet.
Oh man, yeah, that was funny.
What's the fastest you ever went in that car?
Until the top speed, which was 120 somethings.
So
But
it
it
was really a
was
hard limit. It was not at
hard
some
limit.
point. At
Yeah,
that
yeah.
point, it was
Just
not going faster
the
because engine
engine would
choking.
the engine would give away. Like it's just like um but it was amazing. I remember the first time I'm driving this car. Um we are not our necks are not fit for lateral forces. They really aren't. And even when you go on a go-kart, that's nothing compared to what you can get on a real racing car. Two
How
things
much
happen.
G's do you pull on such a Formula Student car? Because I see they have pretty big wings, a lot bigger than they are in
I
Formula
do
One.
not
I
have that
saw
information on the top of my
I
head, but there are teams with telemetry that we can look at from YouTube. We
I
could
saw a
look
few YouTube videos that were pulling, I think, about 2 Gs in the corners, which I think
at
is
least. No,
really
I think
decent.
more. You can get more on very drastic curves. But because our necks are not developed, I remember the first time. So the driver selection happens first on go-karts. Like you can easily tell when someone has a feeling for driving fast on a go-kart. That's it. But then, we went all the way into the cars, and First thing that happened is like I did not understand power to weight ratio. Like you're used to hitting the accelerator pedal and not being limited by traction. The car would just go ahead, you know? It will pick up progressively. But on a racing car, without traction control, you would just spin endless because the rear end is just gonna be more powerful than the traction. So it's just ridiculous because you're not used to it. You're used to commercial cars that have front wheel traction, and they're very limited because you're twisting your steering wheel and then you're applying traction, and that is quite a different feeling to when you have rear power, like most racing cars, because it just immediately starts spinning if you do not have a feeling for the traction. And that's what great drivers do. Like they maximize output without spinning wheel too much, spinning wheels.
I think there is a pretty, I think it's funny, a sheikh who was racing a Formula One car and he crashed it, I think, within 2 or 3 seconds. He just, I don't know if you
Yeah.
know the video. He just accelerated and the car basically spun because the wheel spin in the
Yeah,
back.
it's
And
these
he was
cars
actually
are
not such a
beasts.
bad driver. He has some racing background and he wanted to, like, he had a lot of money and he was very talking that he could easily drive it and then boom, straight into the wall. It was like,
This is connecting to what I said. Like racing drivers are built different. These people are just going to the limit on every single part of the circuit, braking, turning, accelerating on a race start, going into the pits. Like this is when people say, "Oh, you're just looking at cars going around in circles," they do not understand the depth of what's really happening behind a steering wheel, right? And
and I mean, then there's even a difference between those people when you see Max Verstappen versus everyone else, basically, and he still
that's
pulls half a second faster with
yeah,
same machinery.
yeah. When you see this generational talent, that is just like making your jaw drop. Just like we do with Max. I'm not a Max fan, but Max is ridiculous. Like you know that he is different than the rest. No one gets even closer to what he can do today. But yeah,
Do you have a
I
driver or a team which you're cheering for in F1?
unfortunately I'm a Ferrari fan. That's quite
Do
a
you think
painful experience.
you will witness a Formula One Ferrari championship during your lifetime?
I mean, I did watch Michael Schumacher on
I
his
mean, from now
time.
on.
From now on, um, I I want to stay optimistic, but they are just not getting there anytime soon. I was a big fan of Sainz and Leclerc together. I think they did a great all-around team, and with Ferrari, you always get this incoherent behaviors, either in race strategy and driver selection and everything. So I don't know. I certainly hope so. I think Charles is it's a good driver to bring that championship. He's loyal. He has been consistent, and he's become better and better with time. So I would love to see that Leclerc championship on Ferrari. I know it's a long
Who
shot though.
who do you think is the so I guess we all agree that Max Verstappen is probably the best, certainly the best driver in the grid if he has the car.
Yeah.
Who do you think is the second, third best driver in your opinion in the grid?
Look, I think I pay attention to improvement in between seasons, and this is where I've seen Leclerc improving a lot. He made a billion mistakes when he had the best car. When Ferrari was on the top, I don't remember exactly which year. I think it was 2022. But they were also penalized because of engine like apparently they were breaking some rules. It never got public,
Uh,
but
yeah, yeah, I remember. Wasn't it that they kind of cheated the fuel, how much fuel consumption they have because they were measuring only. So they kind of figured out that the tool which measures the how much fuel is going through it was only detecting in certain intervals, and then in between the intervals they were pushing more fuel into the engine. But when they were measuring, then it was fine again, and they had
yeah,
so much power. Then at some point it got investigated or something. You probably know more about that than me.
yeah, that's exactly what happened. And in that season, we got amazing Leclerc versus Verstappen fights, epic fights. Like those were like the races that you wake up early for, and that you basically watch Formula One for, those overtakes and those fights on track. And I believe Leclerc and Verstappen have the highest talent, so to say, on the grid. However, I started saying that I look at improvement, and it's impossible to forget how much Piastri has improved, and I do believe Russell is a little bit underrated. But I would
I would have
say
actually said that Russell would be my number two because he's basically never doing mistakes also, and
it's
I think he's
extremely
beaten
consistent.
Kimi Antonelli, who is I think not bad, 16, 17-0 now this season. Um, yeah, he's extremely consistent. So I also think that Fernando Alonso is doing a really good job with the cars he had.
But yeah,
I think if you put him in a top car, he's probably also right up there.
Alonso is a generational talent as well. He was ridiculous. I think he's not so smart when it comes to the politics of Formula One, which are very well needed in a sport like that. And he caused,
What do you mean
but
by politics in F1?
well, for example, the relationship with Honda completely broke when he said the comments about GP2 engine when Honda was coming into the Formula One engine world. And that hurt him when he tried to get into Indy, and he tried to compete for a Honda power team. And they were like, no, you were not going to drive another Honda car in your lifetime back then. So then he couldn't win Indy. There was a time in his career that he wanted to like I think win Le Mans, win Monaco, and then there's the milestone of winning Indy 500. So he couldn't win Indy 500 because the best car was a Honda powered, and he couldn't get into one of those cars after his comments to the Honda engine team. That's the kind of situation that it's politics. Like you should not shout to your team, GP2 engine, what the fuck, it's you can get emotional, and these guys, it's easy to judge them because we're not on their circumstances, but they're putting their whole life under under that situation and their whole careers. And I guess it must have been frustrating, but you must be trained also to stay calm and to deal with these stressful situations. So yeah, I think when you look at 2012 Alonso, I mean, when he was in Ferrari and he almost got to his third title, that was one of my favorite performances for any Formula One driver. And he was basically on a shitty Ferrari, like at best third, fourth car on the grid, and he almost got the championship that year. I think he's basically he was basically performing on the same level that Verstappen is doing today, um, at least comparable.
Are you following Formula One a lot?
I am. I watch every
Do
race,
you? Yeah, I mean, you have been if
starting
you
point.
have been race in a racing team yourself, you guess you're very liking motorsports. So I wonder when you, after Formula student, did you have some more career steps in terms of motorsports that were following up in some Formula professional teams?
No, I think you get to the motorsports, I think is an all in, all out professionally. There's a lot of competition. The lifestyle is extremely raw. I've heard like this, every, like all personnel from Formula One team is working extremely hard. They're devoting their lives to their teams. And
It's probably
uh,
very hard to combine with a family. It's like
yeah,
Tesla,
exactly.
SpaceX, working hours mentality, where you just say, okay, you are like in your late 20, early 30s, you don't have a family, you just go all in, working 12, 13 hours a day.
Yeah.
And
And I think racing gives you a very raw picture of your effort. As in, whatever you're developing, you'll see it on the racetrack, and the results will be very evident because either your car goes faster or it doesn't, which is not so easily caught in every industry. You know what I mean? Like you might be working for, I don't know, a software company, and there's a lot of ambiguity towards, okay, why is our product not selling so well? Or I don't know, a construction company, why is this taking so much longer? Okay, there's lead times and everything, there's strikes on the workforce, whatever. But when it comes to racing, I think we have a very clear life cycle of your ideas or your designs or your development. Because you hit the racetrack, and if the car is going faster, if the driver is feeling better, you're doing a great job. And if it doesn't, not working so well.
I guess it's hard to hide if you don't know what you're doing on a race team. Um,
Definitely. I mean, and as I said, and there are some teammates that made it all the way to Formula One. There's one working for Alpine as well in their aerodynamics team. And so when I talked to them, because they came to university when I was studying still, and they stay close to the team even though they graduated and they were in Europe working already, and they were very transparent. Like, look, the best chance you have to go into Formula One is to study at a top university in the UK because that's where most industry is. Most Formula One teams are based in the UK, and most suppliers, even if you're not working for a team, they're locally distributed, like close to each other. I don't know, Amston, Milton Keynes, and so that was their advice. Like, come all the way to the UK. That's your best shot. You are getting shoulder to shoulder with suppliers, manufacturers. You get, I think, the thesis, the projects, everything they do is with motorsports teams, and it's very particular experience that you get in racing. You don't get one-to-one experiences nowhere else. You can translate those experiences into the outside world, but it's
and those
not.
people who
Hmm.
have made it to F1, you have mentioned, I think, two or three people. Um, is it, what are they saying? I might not have to go into detail, but is it the dream that they were expecting, or is it
Yeah,
different?
I think they're very happy people. Uh, they're incredibly passionate. They're incredibly dedicated. They're incredibly competitive. I think racing brings extremely competitive people together. There's no way around. Like if you don't do it, your competitor will, and they will win. It's a very raw environment. But their racers at heart and their competitors at heart, and I think they love what they're doing for sure. Um, with its sacrifices, it's not all pink and pretty and flowers all
But
around, but
it seems so. I think when you're young and you not have kids and stuff, you can do this lifestyle, and it probably, if it's your dream, then it gives you a lot of energy. So you can do these working hours without burning out if you're in flow. But I guess it's nothing you do for like decades when you get older. So, what would be the long-term plan if someone wants family later on? Are there also spots which are compatible with that?
That is a great question. I don't really know the details. Some people they set careers as their number one priority. I think it would be a matter of asking after they conclude their career, like, do you have any regrets? Like, would you have preferred to, I don't know, start a family, have a work to life balance or whatever, or, Formula One title is better than that. I don't know. I think it comes to a personal taste as well and values and whatever you give more importance to.
But it's not like that you make a shitload of money, because I've seen that engineers in Formula One make maybe 6-7K a month, which is a nice salary. But considering that you're among the best of the best, it's probably a salary that a semi and experienced engineer gets at BMW or
Yeah,
Volkswagen. So it's not like you do this for a few years and you are set for life. Um, so I guess you have to even either do it for a long time, which might be hard, and you might get burnout. You might not have a family, or they won't see you a lot, um, or you have to do it for a few years and then maybe you transition to a normal automotive company.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's not only about the it's not only about the salary, it's about the quality of your salary, right? They're putting lots of hours into tough conditions, crunching
I mean,
data.
the hourly
Mm,
wage is probably just above minimum wage if you
could very
consider
well
the
be.
effective working hours and the productivity.
Could very well be. But yeah, it's hard for me to judge without the inside experience. Perhaps we could talk to one of my, for example, the person working at Red Bull, that used to be my teammate. I mean, not even teammate, but on my team. And if he would be interested to be on the podcast later on, perhaps you can ask directly to him.
That would be awesome. So maybe
Yeah.
if you have some context, we can step up the podcast. That would be
Yeah,
cool.
I mean, it's Formula One. It's also a very particular world. Like they keep their secrets. It's a very secret-oriented team. I did have an interview with the suspension provider for Ferrari. It's actually a Swedish manufacturer called Öhlins. Have you heard about it? So basically, they build suspension systems for commercial cars, moto, GP for Ferrari. They're the official sponsor for Ferrari's suspension systems. And I went for an interview with them, and I went to the premises. I walked inside the building, and everything that was linked to Ferrari had like highest security. Like I could not even look from like through the door. They were like specific locks and systems that, only with your badge and like with a code you could go into that part of the building, even if. So again, these people are competing for millions of euros, and you know, designs are sacred. They're always competing to each other. I mean, on a lap, it's 0.1 second differences that matter. So like a little bit here, a little bit there, it's really important for them. So they're extremely secretive. Perhaps he's going to be a bit shy. Perhaps he'll be happy to share anything else but secrets.
So you said that, for example, at Ferrari, everything is very secret. But then on the other hand, there's fluctuations between teams in terms of stuff. For example, a famous one would be Adrian Newey going to Aston Martin. Wouldn't this throw over everything when you have some spying would be nothing compared to a skilled team member of you going to a competitor?
Absolutely. I think that's what they tried to avoid. There's was also a big um, drama about Red Bull engineers going all the way to Aston Martin before. Um, so yeah, it's a constant fight for those resources. Um, I can't imagine what is allowed and what is not allowed. I think they must be very careful with, passwords and limitations internally. Because, yeah, as we were saying, it's just a few seconds make all the difference, and it's the difference between P1 and P9, you know?
I mean, there seems, let's say, if somebody is not a very honest person, and I don't think that people are evil, but I mean, everyone has its price, I guess. So if you would offer, so you don't make a huge amount of money as a normal engineer. So if you have access to important stuff, and then someone from the outside would come and offer you money, I guess I
I
mean,
think
there's
at
probably a
least,
lot of reputation to lose, so I guess it's probably not happening. But then it's also not like unimaginably that there are doing some shady things. So let's say you're not winning by being nice. I think that both applies for race
yeah,
drivers and
I think this has improved a lot in the last few years. Like when you look at Crashgate happening in the 2000s, I mean, there's been a bunch of weird
can you
scenarios.
tell me a bit about this Crashgate stuff? I'm not sure if I'm familiar with that.
I don't recall exact details, but yeah, it was like a scandal with a driver crashing against other for the benefit of
Was
the
it in
team.
Singapore where with Renault with Flavio Briatore?
Yes, with
Yeah,
Briatore
yeah,
and
I
Renault.
remember. Where there
Yeah,
was, I think back in the days where the box entry gets closed once there's a safety car. So I think Fernando Alonso was it who just
yes.
made it in the box entry, and well, I forgot the name. Who made the crash?
Piquet,
Uh, yeah, and it's in Piquet exactly.
Piquet. So yeah, um, you get those situations, and now we don't hear about those. But of course, there's still competitiveness, and
And then the money, like it's a lot of money between the
it's a lot
spots.
of money, and it makes all the difference. These are big brands fighting for the P1.
I
Uh,
mean, I find it impressive this season. I think it's one of the closest I've ever seen. So in qualifying, sometimes there's between the first person and the one who flies out in Q2 is half a second, and I think this is crazy. Sometimes it's four or five
that is
tenths
crazy.
between
Yeah,
all the
when you think about
manufacturers.
drivers maximizing the package, and we've seen the crazy with Max Verstappen and the rest of the other drivers on the same team, like with Lawson, with Sonoda, with everyone. It's evident that, for example, Lawson, he's back to top where he should belong, right? With the Racing Bull, with the other car, but it's a very particular car, the Red Bull, and yeah.
Do you think Max Verstappen will go to another team next season?
To another team, I don't think so. If he's still on the fight for the title, I'll say what everyone is saying. You just never write Max Verstappen off. This it's always a possibility that guy is racing. He's on his peak, and if he will win every race from here onwards, it's a realistic scenario. Nothing wild to think about. So we'll see. I
I
think
mean,
it's
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 going to
getting
be
very
interesting to
interesting.
see how the Red Bull performs um on the tracks which need more downforce, because I think now there were two fast tracks which
Yes.
probably suit the car. So I mean, if he is that dominant on a track which is kind of opposite in terms of characteristics, uh, then I agree. Then it could be really interesting. Also, I see a decent chance of the to the Piastri and Norris taking each other out at some point. I think they had some
Could very
occasions
well
where
be,
it was
yeah.
really, really close between them doing Hamilton and Rosberg.
I think there's
Um,
a lot of pressure. You can feel it in Piastri's behavior this weekend, in Norris crashing not too long ago. I think it was Montreal when he crashed against the wall trying to overtake Piastri. And knowing that Max Verstappen is breathing on your neck, it's going to be a lot more pressure. So we're up for a really interesting end of the season, I hope.
I think 7 races and 3 sprint races are left, as far as I know. So, I mean, last season it was opposite situation, and everybody considered Norris a championship contender. But in the end, it wasn't really close. So why not in the other way around? I believe Max Verstappen is definitely a lot better under pressure than Norris. So I guess that this way around, I think it's more likely that he will turn this season around than it was last time the other
Yeah,
way.
I agree.
Um, yeah, I mean, I'm generally a rather neutral spectator, so I always like it to be really close and dramatic. I
Of
always
course,
love this races where
that's
there
what
are
we all
like
want.
6 red flags and like yeah, I don't really care too much who wins as long as it's dramatic in some way and close.
So back to GPRO. What brought you back to the game, Jan? I never asked. You were
Um,
retired for a little bit, right?
yeah, actually, I dreamed several times about GPRO, and it always was a nice dream. And at some point, I was like, it is a sign of my subconscious that maybe I should start playing again because I always enjoyed it. Um,
It's my
yeah,
time
also
too.
I had a bad week, and then I thought I need something that to cheer me up a bit, and then I thought going back to my old team would also be nice, having some support, and also now I think
So you're Nuvolari from always.
yeah,
No,
not always. I was started in the German team, which
that's
then
so
basically
typical.
fell
We all
apart.
do, right? I also started with a Venezuelan team, and I think most managers are like patriotic until they're like, you know what? No. So you're a
Yeah, at some
Nuvolari
point
from the beginning. What do you think about being on that team? Like, how are Nuvolari Pirates?
I think it's really nice. So we're also a family team, which means we're not only have 10 but 40 members, which means there is a lot more life on our
What?
Discord server.
You are
Um,
40.
yeah, we actually have 8 people in elite only,
Holy shit. That is insane.
and
I
I think
didn't
we have
know.
another 12. We have I think
Predators Racing
20
Classic.
people in elite and master. So it's I mean it's an advantage. We have to coordinate a lot in terms of drivers. So we had recently a tweet which we discussing offers, and it had like hundreds of messages because people were trying to arrange all their offers and who
No
takes which
fucking
driver,
way.
and there's a lot of the stuff going on. It's not always easy, but so far we didn't get really into each other's way, so we always try to push in different seasons.
What would
But
happen if
I
you
guess at
get
some
two
point it might happen.
drivers? What happens
Hmm?
if you get two drivers fighting for the championship?
Well, so far we always. So first of all, we did not win a championship for 24 seasons.
So you were
So
the
I
last
was the
one.
last. I was the last person in our team who do it. So after I retired in season 82, there were no champions. I'm very optimistic that it will change in the near future. There are people who are. I'm not saying anything in detail, but I think there are people who are well prepared or who are preparing. Also, I'm supporting them. And now we have a really nice tool by Alex, which like Alex tool in combination with me, I think this is a good combination. So I believe that we will now have people pushing, but it's not that many people that you could not arrange that they are going for different seasons. But let's say if it gets even more competitive at some point, yeah, you might have to go into each other. Um, I mean, you could do something like one person takes Mishi, some other person take bridge shocks, so you cover both options. Also, an idea I had, if this scenario comes up, is that you negotiate a budget cap, for example, and that people have to work with that within the team, and the person who violates it gets, like, I don't know, a season without a team tool. I don't know, but that would be a solution maybe to avoid that people go ruin their accounts going to each other. But yeah, so far I don't think it's an issue in the next seasons.
And so, for example, wow, I'm just getting my head around being 40 people. You all
It's not
share
like
the same
everybody's super
tool,
active, but yeah, I mean,
but
it's
you
more
all share
active
the
than in
same
a 10 people
tools.
team.
Do you collect data from the 40 people or you have like divisions within?
Yeah, sure. So with the team, there is no difference between the 40 people. So everybody contributes, which is very nice because you have thousands of data points. So this definitely helps solving stuff. But then also people, there are not that many people that are super driven researching. So most people are just there hanging around. It's not like 40 people who are like actively doing stuff. But there are a few people who are dedicated and good programmers, and I really like that because I'm not. So it helps me because without their skills, they are kind of supporting me a lot.
Very, very cool. Nice to hear. I think I was opposing to large teams. My previous team was decent. I think I've been in two different teams, like one that was amazing tools, but not so much experience. So I was reaching the top of not having a speaking partner. Like, I think it's hard to get the experience. That's irreplaceable. The tools you can always improve, but what to do with them, it's equally important, right? And then now I'm in Gulf, and you get all these experienced managers that know what they're doing. And so I think the ideal is to have both, just like you said, with, for example, Alexander and yourself, like combining into that. That helps a lot of team. But again, I think it can also become a lot of noise if there's 40 people. I was vouching before for like having top performers and not so interested. Like, because I'm very active as well as a teammate. I'm always gonna give feedback and like getting into the details. And some people just don't care. Like some people are on the team just, you know, qualifying and racing every day, every race. So, but if you say that 40 people get along, that's quite a wow. That's a lot.
I mean, there's a disadvantage, and this is a similar problem that we discussed in Formula One, and that's people leaving. The more people you have, the more risk you have that somebody is going to a competitor. So, for example, I think the last bigger change was Bert Heilebrooks, who went to Jaguar and won 2 titles there. So I don't know how if he took every knowledge with him that he had, but of course you don't really you try to avoid, or let's say you see it a lot when the big teams are recruiting. They often prefer going for rookies or even like really new players instead of someone who might have 2 or 3 teams already, because they think might be a team hopper who's just trying to get some knowledge here and some knowledge there, and the teams are really keen on not that person not leaving. So I guess it's the same like in Formula One. There's of course even more at stake, but yeah, generally I remember when I came back to my team, they were quite happy that they don't have to recruit anyone because anybody, it's always can be like a thing that there were. I think there was a case that was when I was gone, so I don't know the details, but they guess that he just went to Nuvolari for a few seasons to get the knowledge and then he went off. So yeah,
I get
try to
it.
avoid that.
Interesting. All right.
And you were fourth this season, so yeah, what are your plans for the next season?
I think my short-term ambition is to get to elite. I want to say made it. I'm in the top 40 for a season at least. Um, thoughts. This is my first Masters push, and I almost made it. I think I would have made it if I planned a full push, which I didn't. What I told you about the sponsorship, I think I ended up running short on cash to really bring the fight to the top three. Um, yeah, I think my lesson learned is like you really need to nail everything when you do not have the untrainables, because I'm starting with a broken foot, right? Like I need to nail everything else to compensate for the untrainables and those CCPs because it was day and night comparing car parts from Anya and from me. Like I was running a level 7, 8 car part package, and it was comparable with Anya's level 4, 5, top 6 on CCPs. It was
Because
like,
of test points?
yeah, because of test points. Also, my testing style. Like, I am someone that believes, not someone that believes, I have had to compensate because I cannot keep the cash flow because of the untrainable situation. I just need to compensate with car parts that cost more, so I can't test every round and yada, yada, yada. So I think I learned a lot about that balance, and I was very happy to be up there in the top four at least. And I know that the best is yet to come. So I'm happy to be learning a lot from the situation and from also from my teammates that have been very supportive as well. Like, um, yeah, getting to elite is the number one prior.
So I've seen you hired a new driver. So will this driver take you to elite?
I think so. I hope so, at least. Time will tell, but on the driver's side, I'm very happy. Let's see how things go with sponsorship, and let's see how it goes with the first retention season. I think that's the biggest challenge now. But yeah, one step at a time.
Then I wish you a lot of luck for that and that you will compete in elite and
Yes,
maybe we can race together at some point. I
could
guess
very well
there's a
be.
decent chance that our journeys will meet because it's lonely at the top, and then the chance gets bigger. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
would
thank
be
you very
fun to
much for
come
your
back to
time.
this podcast and think about that when it's happening. Like, oh crap.
The next interview is when you become GPRO champion.
Fingers crossed.